And we're back.
All right, going on to part two because this episode's going to be a long one.
Right. Episode 10 turned out to be a doozy. It's a lot of coding, a lot of data. Well, not a lot of data, but just a lot of coding. So, all right. Well, cool. Yeah, we recorded part one Sunday evening. And here we are Monday evening recording part two. This definitely had its challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges was getting SQL Server to work.
Yeah.
We actually, gosh, I think I want to say it took us like over half hour, maybe 45 minutes
Something like that.
to
Figure out.
get the connection going. And I want to blame it on you, Jonathan, because you had a misspelling in there.
Yeah, that was my fault.
But yeah, yeah. Had it not been for that, I think we would have been a little bit further along. But it's all good. Um, cool. So you wanna share your screen and we'll pick up right where we left off.
All right.
What we'll do on this one is we'll cover the update.
All right. Not now, Visual Studio.
You could have just clicked on do not show again.
Oh. All right. So a review. We've got the select action here.
So let's go ahead and run it. I think if we run it, I think we'll get a better idea of where we're at. So we have this screen that comes up and it displays the records that are in the database in the birthday tables, and we have a total of 5 records. And then we give you a menu, right? Select an action. And so in here, I think we have the ability to read a record. So if you hit R, and it's going to tell you to provide the ID. So you provide one of the IDs above there. And we get the record. We get everything. We get the name, the date of birth, the date of death, what they're notoriety for, what they're notorious for. Let's do R again, and we'll do another record.
Yep.
Yeah, and you'll see that date of death is empty on this one, so that means that this person is still alive.
Cool.
So, and then if you hit X, it exited out, so no longer inside. But there's some things that we'll fix because it's not as intuitive. And granted, this style of programming we don't do very often anymore. It's a rarity because we have graphical user interfaces. We work with Windows, we work with pretty screen designs. But what this is leading us up to is to build an API. And so, we'll be able to build the API, and we'll be reusing a lot of this code. I feel like you're in a situation where you're trying to balance work and life and learning programming. And so I went ahead and I took the long route on this one, just so that you can get some practice in with typing. I think last time I had you do some copying with stored procedures. And after thinking about it, I was like, I stole Jonathan the opportunity to practice the syntax, and it's like I broke the number one rule that as a developer you should never do, or you should rarely do, which is copy and paste, And so I wanted to take the long route with this one. So we got the select all running, right? So if we go through the code, it'll start on line 13, right? We just go and display significant birthdays. And then on line 14, we call a method called list birthdays. So if you go ahead and click on list birthdays and then right click and go to definition, it takes you to the method that it's calling, right? And what it's doing on line 85, it's creating a connection string. And so we're giving it a connection string. That connection string is up on top. We'll take a look at it in a moment. And when it creates a connection, we also create a command object, and we pass in the command that we want to execute and the connection to that command object. And then we inform the command that, hey, what you're going to execute is a stored procedure on line 80, what is that, 89? And just before we execute that command on line 91, we open the connection on line 90.
Mm-hmm.
So it opens a connection and then it executes. And we're telling it that when it executes the birthday underscore select all, it's going to give us back a reader. And so this reader, the technical term, according to Microsoft's documentation, is that it's a forward-only, read-only firehose effect. This is the fastest possible way to get data from SQL Server. And the reason it's called forward-only, read-only is because you cannot update any data. So as you're reading the records, it only reads forward, right? It'll grab the first record and you can read it. You can read all the values, and then it'll go through the loop, grab the second record. You read all those values from each column, and then it grabs a third record, so on and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hence, forward only, read only. So you can't perform any updates this way. And it's called the fire hose effect, which means that you have to process that data as fast as you're getting it, right? And so that's essentially what we're doing when we execute that reader. What we do is we start a loop on line 92. We start a loop and we say, while you read, right? So it's going to read. And every time we execute that line 92, it reads a record. If you go open up SQL Server Management Studio and go ahead and log in, you got to put your password in there.
Whoops.
Yeah, we had this problem yesterday. There we go. And if you open up a new query, you can just go ahead and type in use space significant. There you go. Select it right there. And then go ahead and press enter. And then type in go. So that's going to go and use that database, and then go ahead and press enter a couple times. And here you're going to say exec. So you're going to execute exec. Execute the birthday underscore select all. And then go ahead and execute this. So here, the reader, when you hit reader.read, right, in your code, it's just going to grab that first record.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to you to read each column in that record. So you're going to say, hey, give me that ID, give me the full name, give me the date of birth, give me the date of death, give me the notoriety, the created at, updated at, and then you execute the read again, and it goes and grabs that second record. So you're going, you're going in a repetitive fashion, right? And the way you see your data here is the way you need to imagine it in your head when you're programming against this, So let's go back to your code in Visual Studio. So in here, we call the read on line 92, and it grabs the first record. And then on line 94, we say, reader, go read me an integer. And the column that you're going to get that integer from is called ID. And you get that integer value back. And if you go back to SQL Server, you'll see that ID column is going to give you a 2.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to code. And then the same thing with the get string. So you're specifying what it is that you're going to get out of these columns. So not only do you have to know the name of the column, you have to know what the type is. So the ID happens to be an integer, the full name happens to be a string, the date of birth happens to be a date time. So you have to know what the types are and translate those to C#. Hence, the ID variable on line 94, we identify that as an integer.
Mm-hmm.
On line 95, the full name, the variable full name is identified as a string. On line 96, the date of birth is identified as a type, date, time. So we have to specify what those types are. Now, we could have easily taken the shortcut and put var on all of those, but that wouldn't have worked in the case of line 97, because now we have a nullable type. So we have to specify the nullable type at that point. And so, and I'm sure there's probably ways to work with the syntax to use the var, but this is probably the most direct way. It's self-explanatory. And there's no comments that you need to write in order to understand what the code is doing. So that's what the list birthdays is doing, right? Let's go ahead, and if you see up on your left-hand corner, upper left-hand corner, there's a little back arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Click on that, and it brings you right back to where you came from. So the navigation, Visual Studio helps you with the navigation. And then we write an empty line, and we write out some more stuff to the console to let the user know, it's like, hey, here's what you can do, right? After we've already displayed all the records on the screen. And we tell them, if you press C, you can create a record. If you press R, you can read a record. If you press U, you can update a record. D, you can delete a record, so on and so forth, right? And so we've taken care of the R, which is read a record.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think what we should do is we should create a record. So if you go to line 29 and you override that console write line, we'll replace that with create record. So just like you did display record, we're going to create record. And then you'll let Visual Studio generate that method for you. So you can go to the definition.
It's right here.
All right. And so if you see, let's get some real estate and let's get rid of that error list so you can unpin that window on the bottom. Go ahead and unpin that error list box. This gives us a little bit more real estate. And I guess in here, when you hit C, we want to prompt the user to give us information of what it is that they should create, right? So we know that the ID gets generated at the database, so we don't have to deal with that. So we can actually begin by having the user give you the name of the person. You remember how to do that? So we have that console read line, right, on line 25.
Okay. Action.
So, well, it wouldn't be action, because what we want to get is we want to get the first name. So even I come to think of it now, we want to tell the user what to do, right? So we'll say, we'll do a console write line. And inside the console write line with double quotes, you would just type in full name and then put the colon and then put a space. And thinking about it further, let's get rid of the right line and just put right, so that doesn't give you a new line. And then on the next line, you can do your var full name equals console readline. That'll be all lowercase. These
Okay.
are variables that you're going to be using locally. Yeah. And then once they enter that, what's the next thing that they're going to have to provide to you?
The date of birth.
The date of birth, right? So we'll do another var. Or not another var, but a console write.
Oops. Ooh. And then a bar.
Yep. You can just do lowercase dob. And then what would be next? What would be the next thing that we're gonna? Oh, on line 48, do a write only, not a write line.
And then next would
Date
be
of death.
date of death. And this one can't be a var, huh? Or can it?
This one could, because we're just taking data from the user. So what's different about that?
This one.
Compare that to line 48. 48, yeah, 48.
Console.
A lot of times your brain starts thinking faster than you can type.
That I could type for sure.
You're trying to make your code do more than one thing at a time, and it's like, right, and then collect the data as well while you're at it. You know what I want?
And then how do we make it show the created date and updated at?
Well, that's the nice thing, right?
Yeah.
Is that when you create a record, remember the database automatically inserts those values for you?
Oh, okay. So we don't need them.
Yeah, you just saved your time. You just saved some programming time and not have to worry about.
We got the parentheses. There we go.
All right. So let's just test this out, see how it looks. It's not going to do anything, but it'll give us an opportunity to see what it does.
Full name.
Mickey Mouse. Build a house. How many bricks did it take?
Would we be able to put anything on this one too?
You could, yeah. So what will no, that's gonna fail. Well, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, obviously we don't have any way to enforce the data entry. So we're gonna have to be diligent about making sure we enter the correct information. But yeah, I mean, if he's not dead, you can just press enter. Then you don't have to assign anything to it. He owns Disneyland.
Disneyland.
Cool. And then you could just press X because now you're waiting for the menu. Yeah. All right, so we got all that information. So now we got to take those variables and we got to plug them into SQL Server, right? And there's really no difference when you're connecting and you're using a command object. So what you see on line 62 and line 64 is exactly what you're going to type. The only difference is going to be that instead of calling birthdays select by ID, you're going to call birthdays, what is it, create or insert? What's the name of that stored procedure?
And then add with value too.
Yeah, so now what we have to do is we have to send in a bunch of information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go look at your stored procedure. Let's go see what we need to send in. Good, select modify. So we need to send in full name, date of birth, date of death, and notoriety. And those variables, not the types, just the variables need to be spelled exactly the same.
Okay.
So now you can start command.parameters.add with value.
And not the value, just the ID, or just the type.
No, so on this one here, you see how you have on line 74, you have the ID, and then we had to cast the record ID to a character because we're getting the actual character number,
Mm-hmm.
not the actual character we needed. But here, you're already getting the full name, right? So you basically just got to do a comma full name because you already got it on line 47. You have the whole full name. Once we gather all our parameters and we said, okay, here's the command that you're going to execute. Here's the parameters that you need to send in. Now what you can do is you can go ahead and open the connection because we're about to execute some fun stuff. All right. And then in the next line, you don't have to receive anything. You just say command.execute non-query. That one right there.
All right.
And that's it. That's going to insert the record for you.
Cool.
You get rid of that blank line on line 65. And as soon as we execute non-query, now what we want to do is we want to close the connection. And then the using statements do all the rest of the cleanup that needs to be done. Let's go ahead and try to insert a record. So we're gonna have to be careful with the dates. We got to enter them just like we would in SQL.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and run this and see how this is looking.
Create. All right. So we're going with any name.
Jerry Springer. Do you remember that name?
Yeah. Jerry.
His birthday is 1962. And let's just put him in August 24. And he's still alive, so just press enter. And then he's famous for the Jerry Springer Show.
And then X.
Yeah, so this is probably would be a good time to like refresh the screen, huh? So we have to probably program that in there. Yeah, but let's go ahead and do X for now. And then run it again. See if Jerry Springer came up.
Cool. There he is.
Jerry. You seem fascinated.
Yeah. It's funny. He's like a whole bunch of tech people and then just randomly Jerry Springer.
he's a tech guy. What are you talking about? He's a TV guy. All right, let's do an X and let's do it so that we can refresh the screen. Let's go back to code. We may have to put a message before that console read.
So just display.
Yep.
Ah, didn't work.
Did you restart it?
What do you mean?
Go ahead and exit.
Okay.
And then run it. Try it again. What is going on? Let's see here. So we display the record. We read it. We close the connection. Let's put a breakpoint on line 77. Where we got to go all the way to the blue and hit the breakpoint.
Okay.
Yeah, let's run that and let's see if we can step through this and see what's going on. So go ahead and enter the R to display. All right, and you see the little arrows on the upper center of your header. Right. So you're gonna hit the step over. Exactly, yeah, step over, and then step over, and then go ahead and step over. Go ahead and step over, and go ahead and keep on going. There you go. Keep going. Go ahead. All right. And let's pause there for a second. So before we go and write the lines, right? Mm-hmm. You can hover over any of these. So if you hover over ID, see it gives you the value. If you hover over the name, gives you the value, stuff like that. So you could inspect the values, right? So this is going to go ahead and write it out. Go ahead and step over these. And then go ahead and step over, close it, step over, hang on.
Oh.
And go ahead and step over. This should wait here. Let's see why it's not waiting. It didn't wait, huh? I wonder if it's because, go ahead and stop this. You go ahead and stop it. Try a read line. See if a read line stops it. Yeah, let's try to run that. You could remove the breakpoint.
Okay.
Hey, yeah, there you go. It's not stopping it, huh? That's pretty interesting. Go ahead and stop this again. Let's see what it's doing. Maybe we do need to assign it. So let's just go ahead and do a, that's interesting that it doesn't. Let me see what would keep it from. I want to see why the C#, what is it? Console read not working. Let's see what Stack Overflow. You should reline and convert. How to interrupt. Oh. Okay. So essentially what it's doing, it's just saying that this is unreliable in Windows 10. And yeah, it makes sense because it's just not, yeah, Windows 10 handles it a little bit different. Okay. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to replace that console write line and we're going to sleep the thread. So we're going to do, type in thread to capital TH.
No.
Thread, and then do a control period, and let's see what it needs. Using system threading, yep, that's the one we need. Yeah, actually, use the top one. Go ahead and start over, and we'll use the system threading. Yeah, select that first one.
Oh, come on.
All right, so we're gonna do thread dot. And sleep. There we go. So sleep works in 1,000th of a second. So if we want to hold it for 1 second, we have to hold it for 1,000 milliseconds.
Okay.
So we want to hold it for like what? Maybe 5 seconds?
Yeah.
To display the record. So open parenthesis and put a 5,000 in there. So that's essentially just telling the system, just wait here for 5 seconds.
Okay.
Let's run that, see what it does. If this doesn't work, create a record. John Travolta. I think he was born in 1971. I don't know.
March.
February, March, sure. He was born on St. Patrick's Day, 17.
Okay.
The dude's still alive. And he's famous for Saturday Night Fever. That's where it all started for him.
There we go. Cool. And already updated right here too.
Exactly. Look at that. Display him. Let's see what he does.
Oh, wait, is he 9? Oops. There. No.
1, 2, 3, 4. Try it again. So his ID is right next to him. He's 10.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, what's going on there? Oh, because we're only reading one character.
Oh, so it thinks it's 1.
Yeah. Which one doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's stop this. We got to fix that. So where are we reading? So it's line 72, 71, 77. Oh, interesting. So we're going to have to do a read line. But the problem is going to be that we're going to have to convert this to an integer. So, because it gives you a string. Let's go ahead and change that on line 77. Let's change that int to a string. See if it runs that way. And get rid of the, no, close this. Go back into your code. Get rid of the car on line 84. Yeah, you could get rid of line 78 altogether. And then get rid of the car on line 70, 83, yeah. Let's run this, see what it does. I have a feeling this is gonna work. This is the thing about console applications, that you can get away with a few more things. Oh, that didn't like it either, huh? What is it? Hit no. Oh, it's expecting something. Go down to your errors. Oh, you typed in an extra character. Okay, that's what it was. Let's try to read 10, see what happens.
There we go.
Hey. That's pretty cool. So we got a little console application. Believe it or not, this is like back in the 80s and 90s. This is what you would program. This is exactly what you would program. You would just go and like, oh yeah, you want to display something? You go display this. Okay, make a selection, hit one of these keys. And that was pretty much what programming was like back then. And so cool. I like it. We'll go ahead and conclude this one as part 2.
All right.
Part 3, we'll do the delete. And then I think, oh, no, we got to do the update and then the delete. So we're going to have part 3 is going to be the delete. And then part 4, or the update, I should say. And then part 4 would be the delete. And we'll continue those during the week. Get this little 4-part series done and over with.
All right.
Cool. We'll see you guys on the next show.